Well, hello everybody. We're going to have a good talk here. This is breaking news. I want to thank Eric for bringing this forward to me. I just caught it 5 minutes ago. As I wait for people to log on, I'm going to talk a little bit about how my day went today. I actually sat in with the UNSC over chemical weapons and nuclear proliferation. If anyone hasn't been paying attention, Joe Biden rolls out advanced nuclear reactors as his supplement to the Green New Deal. For anyone who doesn't understand the significance of that, advanced nuclear proliferation and enriched uranium will absolutely ensure that you can go with a hydrogen fuel cell. Those countries that can't participate in that, i.e. Canada, you're not going to be able to, especially with the climate we're in. So I spent literally today 6 hours with the UNSC. Pretty awesome, eh? Every single country. So although Russia and USA are going at it, they're not ready to, of course, call it quits. I kind of laugh at all the UN states that participate there. Suckers born yesterday. At least I got to, chat in the chat function, get out Canada's narratives and the problems we're having. What we expect of Russia and Canada, Russia and USA, and what we're watching for in the next 2 months. And of course, that's the Declaration of Human Rights, 1948, signed by Russia, and that USA releases all Crimea sanctions. I went into Ukraine too. That was brought up by France, and they were getting into Ukraine, and I brought up, hey, Ukraine never signed the Declaration of Human Rights 1948 either. So when people who talk about Magna Carta, that is the supersized Magna Carta on this earth today. It's the real living embodiment of that, expanded greatly. It's got a lot of superpowers there. So nations who don't sign that, you have to have issue with, right? And it gets hard to deal with international law when some are subject to and some are not. So it's not really international law, so to speak, when you're dealing with the UNSC member. But now that that's all done and said, I'm going to get into the breaking news here. I see lots of people are logged on now, so we're going to get into it, everybody. Justice Center, John Carpay, they go into court, and guess what the court does? We're sorry, Hinshaw does not have to bring forward any scientific evidence whatsoever. Now, everybody, why would a court not want to see evidence? Can you think of any court you've ever heard of that's going to rule, regardless of government, that they won't hear the scientific evidence or require such? What kind of court of law would ever come up with that solution in the democratic free world that you all know today? Who would ever make a ruling like that? You won't find that in the United States of America. In fact, I don't even think you'll find that in Russia. You only find that in Canada because we are under King's Court. I've talked about this many times, and I've tagged John Carpay in this. I think I would like to see this ruling. What was the judge's argument for not utilizing any kind of evidence forcibly upon the government? Why would the government not have to bring forward evidence, scientific evidence, to prove the validity of usurping every Canadian's constitutional rights in Alberta? These are federal charter rights and freedoms, freedom of religion. Why would they do that, right? Why would they do it? So the only reason they would do it is if the Crown used its power and absolutely told the judges how this is going to go down, like they have done many, many times before. I have stacks of court cases where judges ruled Supreme or Superior, which this is Superior Court right here in Alberta, highest court. They are ruling that they won't look at the evidence because, I guarantee you everybody, Lieutenant Governor through Premier or Lieutenant Governor through Prime Minister, I don't think it really matters because they're both the Crown sharing that autocratic power. And we don't have juristocracy. We have the opposite. We have King's Court. That means the court is subject to whatever the crown deems necessary. Kind of like king and queen, because it is king and queen. Justin Trudeau is king. His court of premiers are like lords and barons, absolutely from the age of colonialism. This is the constitutional colonialism embedded in our Canadian Constitution. The how to govern of Canada's Constitution is absolutely cemented divinely in those crown powers. They were never removed. Russia and USA had a duty and an international obligation to complete this task right across the world. Canada never got touched. For some reason, nobody bothered to come and have a look at Canada from 1952 upon the death of King George VI. Nobody with the international power has come back to assess Canada. And that's why it's very important right now, as I keep chomping at the bit with Russia and USA right now. They have an international obligation, absolutely, to finish the work they started. There's international laws that prohibit this kind of abuse on this earth today. Both Russia and USA absolutely cemented and enforced that worldwide, and they made it a mission to make sure that was removed from the world. Now, it doesn't matter that Russia doesn't function as the Soviet Union anymore. The reality is they were transferred that power and they accepted it. So Vladimir Putin has to go back and he has to complete the work for Canada. Otherwise, Canadians, we're going to be one of the most autocratic, despot countries in the entire world. This isn't a joke. This is reality. And this is the work that USA and Russia must finish. I just spent 6 hours with these guys. Listen to them go back and forth. And they do, it's true, they both manipulate. So does UK, so does France, and absolutely China. That's the power they have. But we, as UN citizens, dues-paying citizens, can go at these guys and say, hey, look, we know what the hell you're doing, and cut the shit. This has to be done. This has to be solved. They like to play their games. They like their supply chains. They like their value chains. And they like to work the world the way they want to. And you know what? That's their power. The world voted for that. But it also comes with some serious responsibilities, one of which is to absolutely fix Canada. They should be both assisting Canadians in getting out of Crown colonial power, especially as it's embedded in our Constitution, as all of our elected parties are granted that absolute colonial Crown power. Exactly how UK left it has been assumed by all of our political parties once elected to office. It is the entirety of the Canadian system and the only rules of governance. If I was to sample every Canadian today and say, hey, do you think it's right that courts make decisions based on what the government tells them to? One or two people decide on a court case whether there's merit or not. Judges can use precedent law, but any time these crown powers of colonialism embedded in our Constitution, the how to govern rules, very limited ones, allow the government to step in on any court case they deem necessary or want to. Can you believe that in the province of Alberta, against the provincial government, breaching not only Canadian charter rights, which are enshrined federally, but also they are human rights enshrined internationally, bound, absolutely bound in international law. It's a human rights violation. It belongs in the ICC. The question is Quebec through France and then Upper Canada, Ontario, all in bed with UK, and they're going to use those UNSC powers to make sure this never sees the light of day? Do you know what I learned today when I was on that stage as I sat through all of it, absolutely all of it? when Canada was afforded the opportunity to speak, do you know how Canada was presented? By Australia. Australia, New Zealand, and Canada, one Australian rep to represent 3 countries. Hello, last time I checked, the law of sovereignty in Canada is its own nation. This is more bullshit from Justin Trudeau and his corrupt premiers. This is a lot that Canadians don't know. I sat through it all live today. Absolutely. My video is being loaded up on YouTube, as well as I've put a Twitter, but it's taken forever to load. I don't know why. Maybe it's too massive for Twitter platform, but I'm locked out of Twitter. People are asking me things I can't answer because my tweets are locked out until the video loads. But lots going on, and the world is waking up and listening. It's unfortunate, but Canadians, get this shared out. This is reality. And you know what? We need to see this particular case because I want to know exactly the words the judge used to make their decision that says the government does not have to produce any evidence as to any scientific method they used to determine that the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, religion, and the absolute human right, not only that it's enshrined in the Declaration of Human Rights, but it is absolutely binding in international law, absolutely under the UN Charter in 1945. That means all 5 UNSC members have ratified that, as well as absolutely the entire world. The entire world. Can Canada get away with this as a non-UNSC permanent representative? The answer is no. And while we may not be able to deal with this domestic problem in our domestic corrupted courts, I do believe Crown-empowered colonialism in our system absolutely breaks international law, belongs in the International Criminal Court, and it absolutely, over what's happened with the right of religion versus freedom of movement, and what the government deems freedom of movement in mass scale is okay, even though we know all the variants came from other countries. That's why they're called variants. They were transported here on airplanes in a monumentous amount of freedom of movement, while at the same time crushing everybody domestically and saying that freedom of religion's the problem and it has to be eradicated. That's absolutely against the law internationally. And Canada wouldn't even show their face in the Security Council today. They opted out. Wonder why, but guess what? I got to represent Canada. Isn't that nice? 6 hours of me on there. What do you think of that? Pretty phenomenal, right? Share it. It's real. It's legit. And I'm just going to keep at it. So you all should too. Share this out. Breaking news. Let's find out what the tail of the tape. I want to see that judge's commentary and why they decided the way they did. I already know the answer, but it's nice to add to the stack pile of evidence of our absolute colonial empowered constitutional monarchy that is absolutely 100% illegal in this world today. Bye now. Share the video.